Here at Seaside Gardens this morning in Carpinteria, where almost all of the Unit 4 plants that we have to learn are here available for purchase and in the ground planted in their beautiful gardens. So come in and check it out. Not in our unit, but what I do is I add on a lot of extra plants here and there when we're in person, pointing out all kinds of things that aren't on our list. I don't want to overload students with memorizing too many plants, so I just like to mention these kind of on the side. They're not on our list, you don't have to know them, but they're good to know, and there's so many to know. But this Acacia, Acacia kagnada, and the cultivar is called Cousin It. Oh, I can't tell if you can read that or not, maybe too close. But Cousin It, from the Addams Family character of a hairy creature with long hanging down hair. It's an acacia plant that has been hybridized and cultivated by humans to have this weeping form. And they make these nice, low growing, really soft, luxuriant looking little mounds of green. That's what they're for. I didn't like them when they first came on the market because this is my own personal opinion. I don't tend to like things that are so altered by humans they don't look natural anymore. But these do have kind of, when they get a little bit bigger, they have such a nice soft look to them and so deep green, and they can do really well in the shade underneath other plants that I do think they really do have a place in landscaping. So there you go. Acacia kagnada, Cousin It. Here's a small, shorter example of the coastal woolly bush, Adananthus cerritius. And it has silvery leaves that make it look woolly, and they are somewhat finely hairy, which gives them that woolly look. Finely divided leaves are pretty. This one's kind of flat, but I also wanted to show you, this does have the flowers on it too, which is neat. They have little minute red flowers hidden in there. You can see how silvery the foliage is. Often, this one looks kind of flattened, but they often are more upright and form a nice, almost cylindrical look to the way they grow. They kind of look like magic rocks or something like that, like an underwater type of plant in the way they grow, and their silvery kind of flexible look to them. So that's Adananthus cerritius, and I will, like I said, try to find you a more enticing picture of these. This is the only one I've seen here at Seaside Gardens, so I grabbed a video of it. A nice little bed of Aeonium herbicum, or the saucer plant. Just like their rosette of leaves is so nice and symmetrical, each one kind of a bright green with a red edge to them. Really pretty and big and flat like a saucer. That's Aeonium herbicum. And there are numerous cultivars. Another one of the Aeonium, and this is a little bit taller one, it's related, it's called Aeonium arboreum. And it has dark purple leaves. So there's a few different types of this. These over here that I first showed you, they will also get taller, but not as tall. And you can keep cutting them back and just shoving the stems back in the ground to keep them a low growing plant if you like. Here at City College, entering the Lifescape Garden to show you another tree. Rather empty today because it's overcast. Down the walkway here under this arbor that the students made in landscape construction class, and this permeable pathway that students made a long time ago, 20 years ago. But right here we have Adananthus flexuosa, the peppermint tree. A little bit difficult to give you a good view of it, but it's that small tree. Kind of looks like brown leaves, but they're actually purplish. The tree has been very popular in the landscape industry because of its purple leaves. So there's the peppermint tree that is natural, and that is green. So it looks like this with the green leaves. But a cultivar was produced, which you're looking at here, that has the purplish dark leaves, and that's called Agonus flexuosa Jervis Bay after dark. So it's got this long kind of cultivar name that people bred it to be purple instead of green. But as it gets older, it loses its really bright purple color. Now the leaves kind of just look almost a little bit reddish brown. Not quite as exciting, but still a nice little tree. Does well here. It's a small tree, so it kind of stays, doesn't get overgrown or out of proportion or shade things too much. The leaves themselves, if you crush them, they will smell like peppermint. That's why it's called peppermint tree. And so a delicate little tree. And like I said, with the first 5 to 10 years, it really is pretty dark purple and striking as a color inside of a landscape. Can't quite grasp that from what you're looking at here. We'll take a few looks at the pictures on Plant Master and you'll see why it's popular. This is the blue hibiscus, Aleogeny hugelii Santa Cruz, and it is also in the hibiscus family. A couple of others in this unit. Really pretty. It's a native. It has these palmately shaped leaves that are deeply divided, and there you see the capsule. That's the fruit, what we technically would call the fruit. So it's a dried part of the flower that has the seeds inside of it. The reason people like this, one, it's native, but actually the first reason people like it is because of the flower. Brilliant purple, kind of crepe paper like flowers. None of them are on the plant right now. There's one on the ground here I see. Really pretty color, delicate looking, bright. And I pulled one open for you to see too, and you can see the center part is yellow. Kind of looks like a hibiscus. It's the same morphology and shape as other hibiscus flowers. So this is, like I said, drought tolerant because it's a native, and it looks pretty good. Flowers a good portion of the year. All the flowers are off now, but when they're there, they are beautiful. So Aleogeny hugelii Santa Cruz. Good choice for a native or mixed in with non-native garden, as long as it's kind of medium water, not too much water. Here is a video of the Kangaroo Paws, or Anigaxanthos. And they have different cultivars. This one's called Regal Claw. This is not a picture of, they'll tell you why people plant these. This is just the foliage. The leaves are kind of boring, little strappy shaped things that get brown at the tips, especially with potassium deficiency. But they have beautiful flowers, fuzzy, many different colors and heights that you can get that look somewhat like the fuzzy paw of a kangaroo. So I'll have to try to find you a better video of that if I can find them. They're not here at Seaside Gardens this time of year. I don't see any blooming. I can try to find some around town, and you can look them up online easily. But it's the flowers are the reason that they're planted. But they're really cool. They tend to not be that easy to grow. They'll flower well for a year or so, and then they go down to almost nothing. So people almost plant them like annuals. They plant them, for a year, and then they rip them out and put new ones in, or go on to something else. Anigaxanthos, Kangaroo Paws. Hopefully you're all familiar with what a manzanita shrub looks like. This is one that looks a little spindly, but I'll show it to you anyways, just in case. So what I'm asking you to know for this unit, we already did one Arctostaphylos Dr. Hurd, but I threw this in because we have so many manzanitas or Arctostaphylos species that are native to California and the California floristic province, which is the kind of botanical term for our botanical region here. Lots of different Arctostaphylos, but they're very beautiful. They're kind of a dry habitat looking thing, but you see the mostly upright green oval leaves, and then the beautiful smooth red bark and branching pattern. That's why people love these. The contrast between the beautiful red smooth bark and the leaves, and just the bark itself is beautiful. This one, like I said earlier, doesn't have the most amazing branching architecture. Still pretty. When you get rain, the bark looks even redder and more beautiful and more of a contrast. But most of these are very attractive. They are not easy to grow. They're finicky, they're tricky. You have to try it out. I wouldn't say this is the first thing to throw into a new client's landscape. You want to get other things established and then put these in and see how they do. But if they die, you don't want this to be the center of your whole design, and it dies, it looks bad. Because it takes a few tries to learn how to get these going and get the soil right for them. Here's an adequate specimen of our Ceanothus, the Yankee Point Ceanothus, Ceanothus griseus horizontalis. It's kind of flattish, horizontally growing, mostly green shrub. All the Ceanothi have pretty characteristic leaves. They have very prominent veins on the backs of the leaves. You can see them really well. Not too close there. This one does not have a lot of flowers on it. They are profuse in producing bluish purple flowers in the spring. There's one of the inflorescences, a whole bunch of little purple flowers on the ends of the stem. Another common name for these are mountain lilac. We have a lot of Ceanothus species that are native to our front country here. And you can see that the hills facing the ocean up in the mountains kind of turn a whitish color in the spring if you look closely, and that is all the Ceanothi. There's a few that are 2 or 3 species that are really giving it that white look, that they produce whitish and purple, light purple flowers. This is a really popular Ceanothus for landscaping. A couple of reasons. It's drought tolerant, it's a native, it attracts bees, its very bright glossy green leaves is attractive, as are the flowers. It's also a legume, it's not a legume, it's a nitrogen fixer, like legumes. And so it can grow in poor soils and gather its own nitrogen from associations with bacteria on their roots. It's like a lot of our natives. It does not like heavy soils that keep a lot of water against the roots for very long, especially during the dormant season. Our dormant season, the time of the year that we don't get precipitation, is about 7 to 8 months. So you don't want to water these too much during that time. But Ceanothuses are great, pretty, hardy, attractive, and native. Next here I want to show you the Cape Rush, Chondropetalum tectorum. It's in here, this big spraying out plant. So it's got lots of small roundish stems that come out from one point, forming this big spray. Each of the stems has leaves on it, but the leaves have been reduced to these little brown horizontal pieces of tissue. It kind of looks like bamboo, but those are actually little teeny leaves, and these are the inflorescences, these brown clusters at the top, the flowering stalks. This plant looks like a plant, and it is a plant that does well and is native to swampy areas, but it also does well not in wet areas, even in dry areas. So it can give a look of lushness and water even in an area where there isn't water. So that's what's happening here. The Cape Rush, and they have a beautiful form, and with a little bit of wind, kind of gently swaying, very attractive, a good background plant as it is being used here. Another example of a cistus cultivar. So another rock rose, and this has a bright pink flower. Here's a specimen of Cistus scambergii, or the rock rose. There are lots of types of rock roses. They're all Mediterranean adapted and drought tolerant, and really pretty flowers. This one is in the shade of this olive tree, so it's really not looking that great, but it's the specimen we've got here at Seaside Gardens, so we're going to take a look at it. If you have it in the full sun and you keep it gently trimmed back, it will have profuse pink blossoms on it for a good part of the year. This only has a few, so let's take a closer look at one of these. Nice pink blossom. Put my hand in there to give you a little bit of scale. So the blossom's about 1.5 inches around. Yellow center. It's a smaller, actually less showy flower for these rock roses, but this one produces so many flowers. Take a look at the other pictures like on Plant Master and you'll see. So Cistus scanbergii, the rock rose. They have a nice smell when it gets warm too. The foliage has aromatic oils in it that some of them are released when it's hot weather. They smell really nice. Great desert, dry land type of species is the Dasylirion longissimum, Mexican grass tree. It's these really long, 3 to 4 foot long, very linear and narrow leaves that form this big spray. It's like a fiber optics plant of leaves. You can see underneath there as it gets older, and this one's about 15 or 20 years old. It has a nice trunk to it. As they get older, they kind of move up off the ground. When they're younger, they don't have the trunk, but they're flat against the ground, and it has these very tall flowering stalks, none of which I see right now. And but they're interesting in and of themselves. They look like a spear coming out of it. This Mexican grass tree. Here's a nice small example of Dimondia. I talked about elfin thyme as a nice ground cover fill-in plant. This is another one in this unit that can be used as a very nice ground cover. It has these grayish green leaves, white edges of the leaves, which actually are the undersides curling up slightly. Does flower now and then. These are the flowers. It's in the sunflower family, related to like dandelion. This Dimondia is great in between the cracks of pavers, along borders, in the parkway, that's between the sidewalk and the street. Even as a lawn substitute to give a big green flat look to the area. It can take mild traffic, meaning you can walk on it, a little bit here and there. Technically, or they say you could park your car on it, but you wouldn't be able to drive much on it. It does require water, kind of moderate amount of water for the first couple of years to get established, and then you can reduce that somewhat over time. So it's a somewhat drought tolerant plant. Dimondia margaritae. So there are lots of different kinds of Echeverias, and they're very popular because they're beautifully symmetrical, small succulents that barely change size as they grow, so you can put them in wreaths and pots and all kinds of interesting little containers, and they just kind of stay that size and look neat. Here is a cluster of one type. I don't know exactly what type. I think this one could be called the chicken and hen. I'm not really sure. So really nice symmetrical. This one has a really pretty bluish white color, and they grow in these nice clusters. This is like a ground cover almost here. They're also using lava rock a lot as a ground cover in this succulent section of Seaside Gardens. And that's a great one for succulents because during the day it absorbs the heat of the sun. At night it releases that heat and keeps the ground and the succulents even warmer and keeps some moisture in. But these are Echeveria clusters. Let's see if I can see a couple more. There are other types of Echeverias. I'll just go around here. There's the saucer plant, tall version, the Aeonium. Some of the paddle plant, those red, flat-shaped leaves. And that's about it for now. Look at all these nice Echeverias. You can see why they're so popular for succulent arrangements and things like that. There's just so many different shapes and colors. The sizes are all fairly small, but beautifully rosette, symmetrical in spiral fashion. All displaying the Fibonacci number series so well. That's repeated over and over again in nature, spiral pattern. So you just look at these and some of you might want to just get inspired to do some kind of craft with succulents. Really cool. These are all at Seaside Gardens here. I don't get a commission, by the way, for you coming and buying things here. I just like this place, so I'm happy to share that with you. Here we have Epilobium Kanum. It's also used to be known as Zauschneria californica, which is, in my mind, a not much prettier name. But this is a native plant, and it is the California fuchsia. Got really nice grayish, whitish leaves with these beautiful, profuse blossoms that are scarlet red, great for hummingbirds, etc. This is in a neighbor's yard, and it's really nice. After like a year or two, you do have to like kind of cut it back to nothing for it to come back again. This is looking perfect right now. And it will reseed itself too. A really beautiful native plant with lots of color. So, California fuchsia. This is Euphorbia Amelia, a dwarf form. They can be taller too, but dwarf Euphorbia. Euphorbia is a close relative of the poinsettia. Milky sap, there's toxins in there. Don't eat it. And this one is, you can see the stems, pretty spiny in there. But the flowers are really pretty, and they're on the plant most of the year. And there are white ones, green ones, yellow ones, and pink cultivars as far as the flowers go. And they're great for producing just color all year long. They don't require very little water. They're easy to propagate. Those are the euphorbias. This is Euphorbia Amelia. Another great Australian plant group are the Grevillas. And that's what you're looking at here, Grevilla Moonlight. This is a bigger plant. It can get to 8 to 10 feet tall. Kind of airy shrub, but nice for a screen that's not super dense between you and a wall or a neighbor or the street. These really beautiful inflorescences. Interesting flowers that have this curled over stigma. Really pretty. And the leaves themselves are compound, kind of feathery looking, to give them this overall kind of soft look. There's a whole bunch of them here at Seaside Gardens. It's popular right now. It's a background plant and there's a screen plant. It's not going to ever form like a nice thick hedge. You wouldn't want it for that reason. You'd want it to be able to kind of sprawl out a bit. It doesn't take pruning that well. So good background plant with plants around it. The Grevilla Moonlight. This is Jasminum angulare, South African jasmine. It is technically a vine. You can see it's kind of a big, low-growing shrub with these new shoots coming out. It has a compound leaf. Each leaf has 3 parts. The thing about the South African jasmine is it is a jasmine, and it has nice white flowers that smell very good. I don't see many flowers on this at all, but there are a couple in there. You can see the white flowers and they smell really good. I see this now and then in landscaping, not too often, but it's a pretty drought tolerant plant. Takes about regular water, a little less than regular watering. It's not really low water plant, but it's nice full foliage. You can form a nice hedge that you can cut back and it'll keep coming back. If you want it to flower though, you kind of have to leave the tips of the branches from being cut for a while so the flowers can form. Kalanchoe luciae, or Thursiflora. You're not seeing the flowers, so luciae is the one I see it listed as mostly. This is paddle plant, and you can see that each leaf is flat and round, kind of like a paddle, like ping pong paddle. The more they're in the sun, the redder they get, but all of them will have this kind of gradation of the red edge, the tips of the leaves or the margins, and green down to kind of almost a chalky blue in the center. Really pretty. And this is a small cluster here of this plant. They can get much bigger leaves, almost the size of an actual ping pong paddle. Really cool. That is Kalanchoe luciae. I'm here at Seaside Gardens in Carpinteria this morning to give you some videos of the Unit 4 plants. One of the first that we're going to look at is French lavender, and this is Lavandula dentata here. We look at two lavenders in this unit, but this one is one you can distinguish from the sweet lavender. This is Lavandula dentata, so you can distinguish it from Lavandula heterophylla by the little dentate or scalloped look at all the leaves. You can see they have little indentations, almost like little teeth. That's dentata. That's where that comes from in Latin. A little bit taller, has the same nice kind of inflorescence, these nice purple inflorescence or clusters of flowers at the end of those flowering stalks. Grayish green, good for drought tolerance. It's a Mediterranean climate adapted plant. And this is the French lavender. When we look at the sweet lavender, it doesn't have those little dentations or those little teeth-like scallops on the leaves, except at the very bottom. All the rest. Here is Lavandula heterophylla. Hetero means other or different, and phylla or phylla means leaves in Latin. This one has two different kinds of leaves. The most part what you see are in the leaves are these smooth, what we call entire margins. The edges of the leaves and the tops of them are smooth. So not like the Lavandula dentata where there's those little almost like teeth scallop-like marks on every single leaf. These are almost all smooth like what you're looking at. At the very base are where you see leaves with little bits of teeth on them. Actually, this one's a little bit older and I don't see any on it. But if we dug down way into the middle at the base, we might see some that have little tooth-like edges. But for the purposes of this class and this unit, you can always rely on the fact that if all of the leaves have those little teeth-like marks on them or scallops, it's French lavender. If all the leaves you see are smooth, it's probably sweet lavender or a close hybrid. They both have these nice long flowering stalks, inflorescences. These are all dried. But this one tends to form a nice, more rounded mound. A little bit more tidy of a lavender plant. Really pretty. The French lavender, this one here in the background, a tall kind of skinny thing leaning up against the pot. Not so tidy, not so nice and round, but they're both beautiful. And of course the flowers are medicinal and nice aromatic properties. This here is an example of the leucadendron, and there's quite a few cultivars of this. This one is the Safari Sunset cone bush. They're all cone bushes, the leucadendron genus. And this one is a cultivar that's made to have this really nice variegated foliage that's white and green, yellow, and bright red at the tips. That's the cone bush. Native to South Africa, and just interesting color. They're not planted for their flowers because they're really inconspicuous are the flowers. It's this really beautiful foliage which makes them nice. Cone bush, they're called cone bushes because at the ends of the stems, the way that the leaves come off, it looks like their flowering stalk is like not a stalk, but the flowering area looks like it's a cone. If you look kind of down in there, there's that brown thing. It's not a true cone. They're not a gymnosperm, but they look kind of like a cone, so they're called the cone bush. But again, close-up of these brilliantly and variegated colored stems of the leucadendron cone bush, Safari Sunset cultivar. This is Malva or Sargentiflora, the island mallow, or island tree mallow. Mallow is the same family as hibiscus, and you can see if you look closely that really beautiful magenta flower. Looks kind of like hibiscus, maybe not so many petals, but that center area of the central stalk of the stamens. Can't see it too well here, but it looks just like kind of the center of hibiscus. So we've got the palmate leaves that are simple leaves with palmately lobe and shaped kind of like a little maple leaf. Grows into a rather large, bushy, almost tree form. That's the island tree mallow, and native to the Channel Islands. Pretty, it's a native plant, does well with very little water, reseeds itself constantly. All these things hanging down here, these are all seed pods. Lots of seeds in there. And these just keep coming back and forming their own little forest here. It gets kind of, overgrown and gangly too, but you can cut it back and, you can keep it somewhat compact, but not too much. It will also die off in a few years. Our experience here is like 3 years maybe, and then it starts dying out and new little ones pop up. So that is the island tree mallow. Malva arsergentiflora. Here's an example of another Protea, not the longifolia, so not the long-leaved one, but really cool flower. You can see these leaves are pretty different. They have long petioles kind of sticking out from the stem. But here's the flower. It's full bloom. Just amazing. Looks like something from another planet. You can kind of see where it'd be good for a bird landing. Beautiful. There's a Protea farm in the Gaviota Coast. I'm actually going to visit pretty soon. Sometimes they look for students to do internships up there. Often Protea farms, though, are on the Hawaiian Islands, and they're sold mostly as a cut flower for different kinds of bouquets and arrangements. People put, probably not so much you give to your, your loved one, but for like in hotels and things like that. We've got a great little specimen here of Cork Oak. This is a small tree. Oak leaves with the little teeth on the edge of the leaves. Acorns, of course, it's an oak, which the genus is Quercus, and the species name is Suber, or Quercus suber. Give you a little clip of that. That's the tree we're looking at now. Quercus suber, cork oak. And if you look at this closely, you can see the bark really thick, and I can feel it's a little spongy. It's cork. It's where cork comes from. The bottles that go into wine and champagne, etc., is harvested off the bark of this cork oak tree. So it's an important commercial species in places like Spain and Portugal, where there are cork oak forests, and they harvest the bark off of these periodically in a way that sustains the tree, but they can still get the product off of it too, and the tree doesn't die. Great desert oak tree, meaning very good for dry lands. It doesn't take a lot of water, grows nicely, pretty foliage, and is attractive. So we have a really nice big one, much bigger than this, on campus at City College. Quercus suber. Little botany geek note. Suber is it's a molecule type or a compound that's in the cells of the bark of this tree. It's like the compound that makes a cell in a plant really thick and hard, and that has a lot of it. So the suberin or suber is that compound that makes this cork oak bark very thick. Second video of the Rosemarinus officinalis, or rosemary. This one has lots of flowers on it. It's a low-growing, prostrate one, meaning kind of grows flat and horizontal. And like I said, really attracts a lot of bees. Lots of good honey in there. Well, it's not really honey yet. Nectar and pollen, which the bees make into honey. Here, also at City College campus, is the white sage. So this is a not bad specimen of it. These things, these native plants, we don't water them too much here on campus, so that they, that's the whole purpose of this bed, for the most part, is to have something that kind of can sustain itself without too much added irrigation. So it's not super full of leaves, but has these kind of ovate, elongated ovate leaves that are very whitish colored, and has brittle stems. But of course, you hopefully know that the leaves are very aromatic and used. You can dry them and burn them, and it makes a really nice kind of sagey scented smoke. Lots of different cultural significance to these for Chumash and other peoples in California that historically live in the area where these grow wild. More up in our foothills, not really on the coast here, where they're native to. What you're not seeing here is the long flowering stalks that stick up, pretty much arching upward, out and upward, 3 or 4 feet taller than what you're seeing here. They've mostly been cut off once they die. So if I can find another one, I'll show you that. But otherwise, look at some pictures of the flowering stalks of the Salvia apiana, the white sage. Here's a little video of the white sage with the flowering stalks. So you can see it's fall. It's not going to be looking its best right now. This is how it would look out in the wild. The foliage is a little bit droopy and sparse. But the flowering stalks here from last year, large, tall flowering stalks with all the white flowers would be coming out of these little round sections that are still persistent here. They're brown now, but they were greenish white with the cream colored flowers in the spring. This is a nice clump of hummingbird sage, Salvia spathacea. The only thing we're not seeing here are the flowers themselves. So what you're seeing is the nice clusters of leaves on each stem, and then the flowering stalk that has shot up from that. This one is still greenish purple, meaning it's that flowering stalk or inflorescence is not too old. There were bright pink flowers sticking out of that probably a couple weeks ago, if not more recent, and those have fallen off. So we're getting late into fall here. It's late October. But this is what the hummingbird sage looks like. The smell of the leaves, if you rub the leaves and smell it, it's very fragrant, really nice smell. And so people plant these for the reason of the smell, the reason of the beautiful pink flowers at certain times of the year, and partly for their medicinal properties too. So this is Salvia spathacea, the hummingbird sage. It does attract hummingbirds. It grows fairly well in and around oak trees. It's native to the understory of an oak woodland. So that's another reason, is having it be a native and have it be low water needs and produce a pretty flower that attracts wildlife. Those are all good reasons to plant it. Here's a closer view of some hummingbird sage flowers that I wasn't able to get in the other video. So you see the inflorescence sticking up from the leaves below, and you see the bright pink flowers sticking out of the inflorescence. So these are even a little bit old, so they really are pretty. There's one sticking up in the background there, and they're bright, showy enough to attract the hummingbirds themselves. And there are the clusters of leaves below. So this is Salvia spathacea flowers. Here is Senecio repens, or blue chalk sticks. This is a ground cover on both sides of the path here. This one doesn't look as bluish, but the new growth is really showing you the bluish color here on the edge. Really pretty ground cover. It's a succulent, does well with very low water, and it is not invasive, so it's kind of a nice alternative to ice plant, which was planted all over coastal California to reduce erosion, and then it took over and went into natural areas, taking over native habitats. So this does not do that. It's very tame. And also, plants that have unique colors like purple or blue are often pretty popular and successful in the horticulture industry because they provide something that's different than the rest of the plants. And this is one of them, a nice blue ground cover look. Blue chalk sticks. Senecio repens. Still here at Seaside Gardens. This is a really nice place where you can, it's a nursery. You can buy the plants, but you can see most of them in the ground in their gardens and look at what they might look like in a mature in-ground way. You know, when you buy a plant just in a pot in a nursery, it's often been given like perfect conditions. It's been in a greenhouse. It almost never looks that good again. But here they've planted almost everything they've got, and they keep planting new things, and you can see what they look like when they get bigger too. So this is actually one of my favorite sages, which is not on our list, but I want to mention it. It's the Salvia limelight cultivar with these lime green calyces. So the calyx is the word for all the sepals together. The lime green, and then the actual flower is bright purple. Really cool contrast. That's not what I was going to show you as far as our list goes. One negative about Seaside Gardens is it's right next to the freeway. So apologize for that noise in the background. It's never really tranquil here, even though it is a beautiful garden. So what I want to show you is another one in Unit 4 here, which is the elfin thyme. Elfin thyme is what is growing in all the joints or cracks of this nice little patio. Often used. Dimondia is another one that's on our list. I'll talk about in another video clip. This is elfin thyme. Little teeny thyme, same thing that you would cook with, but a small version of it. Let me move over here and show you the flower. So that pink flower there is it flowering. Otherwise, it's just really neat as a ground cover. Not really for traffic. Like, you really wouldn't want to have it where you walk on it, hardly at all. But in a place like this, you know, your feet hit the stones mostly, so the thyme doesn't get stepped on much. But it does have a nice smell, very subtle. This is Thymus serpillum, elfin thyme. Here in the South American section of Seaside Gardens, we've got Tibicina heteromala. So this is the glory bush or princess flower. There's a couple that have been popular in the landscape industry. This is one that's really taken off because there's one with a larger flower, but that one's flowers only last about a day. These actually stay on for a few days, so you get profuse amounts of these bright, brilliant purple flowers. Tibicina heteromala. But my favorite thing about this plant isn't the flowers, it's these leaves that are somewhat embossed looking. They're raised and they're velvety with really prominent ribs. They're just really pretty. They kind of give a shine to them. And right now, just to show you a comparison, this is the Tibicina erviliana, the other glory bush with much larger flowers. These are like 3 to 4 inches around. Still the same brilliant color, but each flower, like I said, only lasts for about a day. So they're really pretty. They tend to be kind of leggy. They don't have as many leaves, so in the landscape industry, they don't have quite the characteristics to make them as successful. People like things that flower longer and have denser foliage in general and not leggy so much. But still really, really pretty. If you have the space and the time, and both are gorgeous.